Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. Thank you so much for watching. We are in the relatively early stages of the 2025 offseason. We received a 3-year contract extension from the Royals after making the playoffs for the first time in a decade for the franchise. First time in the 4 years that we've been general manager of the team. And the two big activities in free agency, or not even free agency yet, we're not even to free agency yet, but in the beginning of the offseason for our team was a big trade to bring Caleb Lagerwell back to the team. We traded him away for Trevor Rogers a couple seasons ago when he was a minor leaguer and a top prospect. We had to trade two of our top prospects to get him back, but we have him to hopefully bolster the rotation given the likelihood that Clayton Kershaw will be moving on this offseason. And then we also signed Trevor Rogers to a 5-year contract extension at $18 million a year. So we will have Trevor Rogers, our top starting pitcher, and Bobby Witt Jr., who is our top everyday player, lined up for the next 5 years for $31 million a year between the two of them. So pretty excited to have our top two players lined up. We've also handled salary arbitration with just about everybody that we want to. So we are getting closer to the actual start of free agency. We also did make one small trade since our last episode, which if I can figure out how to get to transactions, we'll show you. We traded Anthony Garcia, who's an outfield bat that we actually do like, who we had picked up from the Yankees organization not that long ago. Hit 38 homers and drove in 92 runs in Omaha for us last year, so he's a pretty good prospect. The issue is that he's just coming off of his last arbitration year, so we're not going to be able to move him up and down. And we picked up David Williams, a decent first base prospect, a bat relatively similar to Vinny Pasquantino, who we recently traded away, and a 24-year-old left fielder, Brian Gonzalez, who has really good home run potential and can play the corner outfield positions capably, as well as some cash from the Yankees. And both Williams and Gonzalez have a couple years of minor league options left. So just brought them on board to give us a little more flexibility with our AAA players in bringing people back and forth from the minor leagues to the major leagues. And as it turns out, we may be using one or both of those players in a subsequent trade. As we've talked about, I don't know if we really talked about it last episode, but I'll talk about it now. Starting pitcher with Kershaw leaving was a big problem for us and something we were going to need to address this offseason, which I think we did bringing back Lagerwell. And the other position we're going to really need to fill is a corner outfielder with a bat, or if it's a great center fielder with a bat, we'd happily take that too, because really the only player we have in our system at the major league level capable of playing center field right now is our starting center fielder, Kyle Lewis. Obviously, we're going to need someone to back him up at some point. So we've added the starting pitcher, but we're going to still need to add a big outfield bat through either free agency or trades. So what we've done is started to see if there might be a trade that we can make for someone interesting. So we've done a search for right fielders who are just a little bit above average in everything. 55 defense, 55 contact, 55 power, and 55 eye. So just looking for a well-rounded player. And you're going to recognize most of these names. They're big-time players: Juan Soto, Dylan Carlson, Aaron Judge, Mookie Betts, Riley Green, Seiya Suzuki, and Ronald Acuna Jr. But there's also Stephen Paolini. Stephen Paolini. I'm sure you'll let me know if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. A 24-year-old who was picked by the Braves, I think a year ago in the draft in real life. I think he may have been a fifth rounder. And he did not do well in his major league debut with Atlanta here in 2025. Batted just 196 with 7 homers and 224 at-bats, 72 OPS plus, 75 WRC plus, and a minus 0.4 WAR. But he is a competent corner outfielder, which actually has not always been a given for this team, these Royals, that we're going to have a competent defensive player out in left field or right field. Also has pretty good speed, pretty solid base runner, good at stealing. And then the batting profile is above average. It's maybe only a little bit above average with a 55 contact right now, 55 gap power, 55 home run power, really good eye, and then average at avoiding Ks. But he's, still a youngster who's making the major league minimum, and he's not projected to be as good as any of these other players. He really just kind of barely meets these minimum criteria that we put out there. But he's also going to be a lot cheaper for us to potentially pick up in a trade. And with the fact that I think Paolini looks as good or better than any of the outfielders who are going to be available in free agency this year, I think we're going to see if we can put a trade together to bring him on board to potentially fill another hole on our roster before we even get to free agency. And in a straight-up trade, the only people that the Braves are interested in picking up would be our top starters, Bauer, Lagerwell, or Rogers, our star closer, Roberts, star catcher, Melendez, excellent reliever, Reed Galliman, or Bobby Witt Jr. So clearly we don't want to give up any of those players for him. But a package of prospects, I think, is something that will allow us to hopefully potentially bring on Paolini to help our lineup next year. And when we add in David Williams, who I mentioned we just picked up from the Yankees, who is a nice batting prospect, but really doesn't have a defensive position and is not as good a player as Paolini, you can see that opens up things a little bit. We can now give them DeCenzo or Horner or Nicky Lopez as additional players, but still don't want to rip anyone out of our starting lineup to get this trade done. So going to continue to see if we can add in some prospects to make the trade a bit more enticing to the Braves. And Brian Gonzalez, the other player we just picked up from the Yankees, does make it a little more attractive to them. Now they're interested in Aaron Ashby in addition to the players. Kyle Lewis we could add in, and Juan Yepez we could add in. But still, we're taking a key member of our bullpen or a key member of our lineup out to get this done. But we are moving in the right direction. As I mentioned, Brian Gonzalez looks like he's going to have excellent home run power, just as good, as not, if not better defensively than Paolini potentially is. But Paolini, that bat, is just a lot more versatile, even though he doesn't have the home run power. Going to hopefully draw a lot of walks, be a 270 type hitter with, potential to hit 35 doubles, 15 to 20 home runs. That would be a respectable bat out there for us to add to the lineup. So I think he'll hit for a better average than Brian Gonzalez, so don't mind giving him up also. And when we add in just one more player, the deal becomes real easy. And that player is Zach McKinstry, who, as I mentioned, is angry with us, wants to be in the majors. With one of the acquisitions we recently made in the last episode, it's going to be questionable whether he's got a spot on the major league roster anyways. We've got DeCenzo and Moreno is kind of backup middle infielders already. And also McKinstry is going to probably be making $1.3 to $1.6 million next year. So absolutely have no problem taking him off of the lineup, and then after that, it's just a matter of finding, anyone else that we want to throw in, and we can get this deal done. And we've got a deal together, adding in the reliever Frazee Breton to pick up Paolini. So I look at this, obviously he's not as good as those other players who came up in the player search for him, because he just barely has the contact needed, just barely has the home run power that was needed, and kind of just barely has the defensive ratings needed to make that. But looking at his batting profile, I think he's going to be an above-average hitter. I think this 72 OPS and 75 WRC plus hopefully turns into, 110 kind of numbers, 105 to 110 kind of numbers over the course of his career, which would be another good professional bat for us, either in the lineup every day, or if Peyton Williams really develops coming off the bench with a little bit better defensive capabilities than some of the guys we have out there now, specifically Peyton Williams and Juan Yepez. So I think given the fact that we have moved on from both Vinny Pasquantino and Anthony Rendon already in this offseason, bringing on Paolini's bat for what we have to give up is a relatively small price to pay for a bat that hopefully will be an above-average bat in our lineup for the next several years. So we are going to go ahead and complete that trade too, and continue revamping this Kansas City Royals lineup. And another reason we were willing to trade away McKinstry, besides the fact that he had angered us, is that Alexander Vargas, the young shortstop, is now on waivers. Doesn't look like he's ever going to have much of a bat, but he still has an option year left, and is a nice defensive player who we can potentially use as a utility infielder, use as some a defensive backup, potentially, and a part-time player. He would definitely be in the mix with Moreno for that backup middle infielder spot. He's not as dynamic defensively as Moreno is, but sadly he probably has a slightly better bat than Moreno does. So we are going to go ahead and claim Alexander Vargas and see if that claim will go through for us to bolster our roster a little bit further. And as we continue trying to clean up our 40-man, reliever Jake Brent's 31-year-old is now out of options. So we are going to trade him away. We feel like we've got enough bullpen depth. He's been at Omaha for the last few years for us, although he did end up making the playoff roster because of some of the injuries. But with no option years left, we're just looking for anything to get for him. And there's actually an interesting prospect here. Francisco Irbaez, a 28-year-old, so he's not really much of a prospect at this point, but he still does have 3 option years left, and he's got really good contact and really good at avoiding strikeouts. Doesn't have much power and not even a great eye. He is a competent first baseman, but at 5'11", not great. He can play second or third. He can potentially even play a mediocre corner outfield spot. But the last 3 years in Louisville in AAA, he's hit 366, 332, and 342, and he's never sniffed the major leagues. So, we can potentially pick up that bat. Maybe he becomes a useful pinch hitter, utility player for us, but we've got 3 option years left with him, as opposed to Jake Brent's, who we've got no option years for, and Irbaez is on a minor league contract. So we are going to go ahead and try to put that trade together, but see if they'll maybe give us a little bit more. They're certainly not going to give us Luis Reyes, but can we get them to throw in a little bit of cash? Ooh, they'll do it for $500,000. Now we'll get a little greedier, see if they'll give us $1 million of cash. Always looking for every little bit of cash we can get as the Royals. They really like Jake Brent's. Good for us. Will they give us $2 million cash? I can't imagine they're going to do that. Yeah, that's too much. So we'll back it off a little bit. Can we get 1.75? Nope. 1.6 million? Nope. 1.4 million? Nope. 1.25 million? 1.15 million. This has got to be riveting to be watching right now. 1.1 million and Francisco Urbaez for Jake Brent. So we are going to go ahead and make that trade as well. So with trading away McKinstry as well as trading away Brent's opened up a little more potential money for us to be using when we do get to free agency. If we want to make some more trades, as we've talked about, there's no slam dunk free agents who I think we're really going to be going after. Obviously, if we could bring Kershaw back, would love to do that. But with the money he's looking for, that's not going to be practical. I think, as we talked about in our last episode, our hope right now is maybe we can get Zach Wheeler for a 1-year contract. Would love to give him a chance. He's fragile, which is not optimal, but certainly if you can add a pitcher like that with 6 pitches, a plus fastball, sinker, and splitter, and then an average curve and slider and a changeup, with that movement and that control and still plus stuff, extreme ground ball pitcher who throws the ball hard, that'd be a great addition for us. I don't know that we're actually going to have the money to swing it, and I don't know that we'll get as lucky as we did last year when Kershaw was willing to just sign a 1-year deal with us. But I think Wheeler is probably the top priority potentially in free agency for us with the recent addition of Paolini. Obviously, if we were able to bring on Wheeler, a rotation of Wheeler, Rogers, Lagerwell, and Bauer as our top 4 would be, I think, really incredible for a team like Kansas City to have put a rotation like that together. So we will see what happens as we get into actual free agency, but I think that we've been probably more active than normal in trades so far in these very early stages of the offseason, and hopefully with the additions of Lagerwell, Paolini, and others, those will pay some dividends for us in the upcoming season. And trying to clear up a little more money for the major league roster, we've waived and DFA'd a number of veteran minor leaguers. Clay Dunnigan, the 29-year-old shortstop, Jimmy Govern, 28-year-old third baseman, Ben Hernandez, a 24-year-old reliever coming off of elbow reconstruction surgery, and Casey Kalich, 27-year-old veteran reliever. So hopefully they all can make it through waivers and we can keep them in the organization, but would rather not be on the hook for guaranteed major league money for all of those players. So we'll see what happens with them. The only other thing we're going to try to do is see if maybe now that we have added Paolini in, whether we can get anything for Daniel Cabrera in trade. He does have 1 option year left, so we don't have to get rid of him, but he's another mediocre defensive corner outfielder, can't play center, and his bat is not as good as Paolini's. So if we can get something for him in trade, we may do it. If not, I don't think we'll waive and DFA him because I think he is good organizational depth for us to have in the outfield. So there's a little bit of interest in him, not overwhelming. We'll see if there's anything worth doing. It looks like it's a lot of actually more highly priced players with contracts that teams are just trying to get rid of. So nothing all that exciting. Ryan Hernandez from the Blue Jays. He's got good power but no defensive position. And there's a lot of mediocre players with guaranteed and in some cases relatively large major league contracts. Couple of 30-year-olders on minimum. So not really much of an offer for Cabrera. So at this point, I don't think we would lose him if we waive and DFA him. he is angry at us. So from that perspective, it's probably not the end of the world if we lose him. So if you're angry at us now when you're making $700,000 when you're in the majors, wait until we waive and DFA you. So again, 5 players that we've waived and DFA'd right now. Hopefully we can retain rights to most of them, but you can see that opens up even more potential money for us to be spending on free agents, and hopefully we don't lose too many of them in the coming days. And our claim through waivers of Alexander Vargas went through. So, I mentioned Moreno, who is always in the mix as our potential utility infielder with his great glove. And now this offseason, we've now bought Vargas into the organization with not as good a glove, maybe a slightly better bat, hopefully. And then Brooks Lee, we've also brought into the organization, who has the weakest glove of the 3, but the most competent major league bat. So I think that all 3 of them will be fighting for 1 or 2 roster spots in spring training. I'd say the only infielder who is definitely going to be on the team besides Witt, Horner, Lopez, and Prado, the starters, is the youngster Zach DeCenzo, who could probably be threatening to take over at first base from Prado at some point, but pretty good defensive versatility. So he will absolutely be on the roster next year. Question is whether he'll be starting for us. Hopefully, at the very least, we can get him into more than 93 games and get him more than 307 at-bats next year with him having another year of experience, and hopefully also, us clearing out some of the people like Rendon and Kike Hernandez and Vinny Pasquantino, who were potentially taking some at-bats from both him and the other rookie Peyton Williams this past season. And we've signed a bunch of our minor league free agents, which is more good news. Looking at the Gold Glove winners, Nico Horner, as usual, wins the Gold Glove. He has won 4 consecutive Gold Gloves since he became our starting second baseman, so great news there. And then Bobby Witt Jr., the youngster who won a Rookie of the Year award and is a 3-time All-Star in 4 seasons, now has his first Gold Glove as a third baseman. So the Royals' defense was really good last year, and we were rewarded with a couple of Gold Gloves. Our pitching was really good also, and Austin Roberts was just rewarded with a unanimous reliever of the year award for the American League, just to refresh on his fantastic season. 71 games, 5-3 record with 48 saves in 76 innings pitched, allowed just 39 hits and struck out 110 with a 5-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. That all added up to an incredible 0.95 ERA, 149 batting average against, 4.52 ERA plus, 46 FIP minus, 3.6 WAR, and a 1.53 SIERA. So just a fantastic season for the great young reliever who we expect big things from next season as well. And no other awards for the Royals despite the big season. I always have some hope that Bobby Witt's going to finally get a Silver Slugger, but looking at Trey Sweeney for the Yankees, who batted .280 with 49 homers, 112 runs scored, 120 driven in, a 7.1 WAR. Hard to argue that we should have gotten that award. AL Rookie of the Year, Peyton Williams did get 4 first-place votes, finished 3rd in the voting overall, so it was nice to see some recognition for the young corner outfielder slash first baseman slash DH, similar to what we were talking about recently with Zach DeCenzo. The hope is that we can get Peyton Williams some more at-bats next season than he got this year. Top manager in the American League was Charlie Montoya of Toronto. A little surprising that Mike Matheny did not get some respect for that. AL Cy Young Award, and this makes it hurt even more. Clayton Kershaw, our one-year wonder, who did not get to pitch in the playoffs for us because he got hurt in his final start of the season in late September, finished second in the AL Cy Young Award voting. So we certainly got everything we could have hoped for out of him. The brilliant reliever Austin Roberts finished fifth in the AL Cy Young Award voting. And then as far as the American League MVP voting, Bobby Witt Jr. finished fifth in the voting this year. Nice to see him getting a little attention. Looks like he is the only member of the Royals who got some votes, but a nice year from Bobby Witt Jr. and hopefully he can get an MVP one of these years down the line. But Vlad Guerrero Jr., a unanimous AL MVP. Fernando Tatis Jr., a unanimous NL MVP, and the National League Cy Young Award, Nick Lodolo of the Cincinnati Reds. And you may have seen this, but I was so focused on Kershaw finishing second in the voting that Patrick Sandoval of the A's, who went 17-8 with a 2.80 ERA, was the unanimous winner of the American League Cy Young Award. So now that we've made it through awards season, salary arbitration and free agency are the next two big events of the offseason. As we've talked about, no one left arbitration eligible for us. We've either signed to a 1 year, signed to a multi-year, or traded away or released everyone who was arbitration eligible, so no decisions on that end. Kike Hernandez is headed to free agency, certainly not going to give him a $19 million qualifying offer. And then Edwin Diaz, Clayton Kershaw, and James McCann also heading to free agency. Check in just one last time on what Kershaw is looking for. I'm sure it hasn't changed much. Yeah, still $22.3 million a year for 4 years. That is rich for us, for anyone, particularly a 37-year-old who's fragile. So bummer that we never got to see him pitch in the playoffs for Kansas City, but at least the team got back into the playoffs. Edwin Diaz, I have a feeling, is going to be looking for more than we want to pay. Yeah, almost $14 million a year average for 3 years. Not a contract the Royals want to be getting out. And last but not least, James McCann did a respectable job for us as a backup catcher. Good in the clubhouse. He is not even in the mood to talk negotiation, so that's fine. I guess he's angry that he wasn't the starter. Yeah, he's angry about his role on the team, wants to be a starter. Well, I mean, he did okay. He hit 245, but no homers and 98 at-bats, and 80 OPS plus, 80 WRC plus, and 0.3 WAR. I'm sorry, James, but you're just not as good as Reese McGuire. Put up an 87 OPS plus and an 87 WRC plus, hit 261, actually did hit a couple of dingers, and he's much better defensively, and he's also a good personality. And keep in mind that Reese is going to be our backup next year when MJ Melendez, who is a better hitter than either of you, also a great personality, great in the clubhouse, and a very solid defensive catcher, comes back. So thanks for your time with the team and helping fill in for the injuries this year, James. But I guess you'll be playing for someone else next year, just like Kershaw and Diaz and Kike. And we've made it to free agency. Take a quick look at the top international free agents. And it doesn't look like there is anything. Mike Castro, first baseman, bad personality, bad defensively. Can hit a lot of home runs, but he's not going to hit for much average. Not that exciting. Does not appear to be anyone all that exciting, at least based on a high-level view of our scouts as far as the international free agents and then the big major league free agents. Brandon Lowe, Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, Michael Kopech, Kyle Tucker, Xander Bogaerts, Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler, Matt Chapman, and our friend Clayton Kershaw. So we are going to have, potentially over $20 million to spend. And, there's no huge hole on the team. Our infield is set. Our catchers are set. And with Juan Yepez, Kyle Lewis, Peyton Williams, and the recent addition of Paolini, I feel like we've got some outfielders too, and maybe one of them will get some time at DH. And then I like our bullpen a lot. We obviously had the best pitching staff in the American League last year. No major changes. Still have pretty much everyone important coming back in the bullpen. And we are going to be swapping out from Kershaw to Lagerwell for our number 2 starter. So that's probably for next year. I would think that Kershaw still could be more productive than Lagerwell, but I think 2, 3, 4 years down the line, Lagerwell is going to definitely be a more productive starter. So I feel like the team is in pretty good shape right now with the 2 big trades we made for Lagerwell and Paolini, as well as all the other moves that we've made. And we got a lot of money to spend. So it's just a matter of figuring out, is there anyone that can make a huge difference on this team? Because we can obviously, if we can make an upgrade at any position, we can trade away our current starters. There's no one who has a completely unmanageable contract on the Royals right now. The biggest contracts on the team for this season are the 2 best players, Trevor Rogers and Bobby Witt Jr., and then starting second baseman and shortstop, Horner and Lopez, $9 million, Kyle Lewis, $7 million that we're responsible for, Juan Yepez, $6.7 million, Nick Pratto, $5 million, and then everyone else less than that or the major league minimum. So we've got potential to get real creative over the rest of the offseason with who we bring on board, either through free agency or maybe even making another big trade and taking on a contract from somebody. Taking a look at the pitchers that actually made it to free agency, kind of what was expected. Wheeler, Kershaw, Scherzer, Eflin, Kopech, Suarez, Cease, deGrom, and Carlos Martinez are the top starters out there. We've already talked about Wheeler. Our hope is maybe he'll go for a 1-year deal. That is a bummer. He's not interested in playing for Matheny, so that takes out probably the top option for us money-wise, given that he theoretically was looking for $10 million a year less than Kershaw and even a few million less than Scherzer, and he's younger than both of them. Now that he's on the open market, Kershaw looking for even more, close to $28 million a year, although only for 3 years. So I guess there's a chance we could structure something with him for less than that. We're not going to take 41-year-old Max Scherzer coming off of a torn flexor tendon. That seems a little risky. And he's not interested in playing for Matheny, too. Is it time for me to get rid of Matheny? The team performed in line with our Pythagorean expectations this past year. He finally got us into the playoffs. I like the profile. Excellent with development, excellent with mechanics, excellent with aging. His relationships suck with the pitchers. He's just a crusty old catcher that hates pitchers, I guess. But I don't know that I'd bag him just to be able to bring on or potentially bring on a free agent pitcher. But certainly with 2 of the 3 top guys not being interested in him, Zach Eflin is definitely not as good as those other guys. He's looking for only $10 million a year, so we could consider Eflin. I mean, over the course of his major league career, he's been a below-average starter. He's been pitched a lot, and he's still relatively healthy, but I don't know what he really adds that we're not already getting from, the Suarez's, Bubich's, Wesneskis, Vanascos, who are going to be in that 4 to 5 spot for us. Kopech, a little more productive, but he's fragile at this point. He doesn't like Matheny either. Wow, nobody wants to play for Matheny. Ranger Suarez, lefty, above average stuff, movement and control, 3 good pitches. Over the course of his career, 130 ERA plus and 88 FIP minus. Coming off of a pretty typical season for him when you look at what he did between the Phillies and Cleveland. Went 14-8, 127 ERA plus, 85 FIP minus. So, really kind of very much in line with his career numbers last year. He's going to be looking for a big amount of money, and he doesn't want to play for Matheny either. Wow, that hurts. Thought he might be the answer there, but apparently Mr. Matheny's personality is not all warm and fuzzy with these pitchers. Kind of looking at the relievers that are out there, I don't think we need to go down that route. We just let go Edwin Diaz, who's the best person out there. Nick Anderson, another guy that we had on the team in the not-so-distant past. He's looking for almost $9 million. I like our bullpen right now. I don't see us chasing after any of these guys. Dustin May doesn't look like he is looking for all that much money. Extreme ground ball pitcher who throws close to 100 miles an hour. 110 ERA plus for his career, although a 104 FIP minus. So what is he really? Minor league contract, which becomes guaranteed if he makes it to the majors. I'll offer him that. I don't even know if he's going to make the team, but it's just one more option in case we have some injuries in spring training. Minor league contract worth $1.7 million if promoted. What if we make it $1.5 million? He'll think about it. Yeah, I'll make that offer. No risk. If he's better than the guys that are on our team now, or if we have a ton of injuries in spring training, that's not a bad contract for a proven solid major league reliever. Any catchers out there? Not that we really need a catcher. Nothing that exciting. Looks like Omar Narvaez is the best. Solid defensively, solid offensively, but looking for $7 million. I don't want him over Melendez. Nothing too exciting there. How about the infielders? Xander Bogaerts, I like the bat. Could he be our DH? He could. He'd give us a lot more defensive versatility, too. I mean, he's not going to play over Bobby Witt Jr. He's not going to play shortstop over Prado. Is it conceivable Matheny might put him in the line at second base over Nico Horner? I guess it's possible. Could he be a corner outfielder for us? Certainly possible. The bat might be the best bat of anyone who's available on the market. I don't want to look at his pitching stats. I want to look at his batting stats. 121 OPS plus, 119 WRC plus over the course of his career. slightly lower this past season, but still pretty productive as a 32-year-old with the Twins. I think he's probably going to want a little more money than we're willing to pay him, but $25 million a year for 6 years at 33 years of age seems a bit aggressive. He'll probably get it from somebody, won't be us. Matt Chapman, love the glove at third. He could play shortstop too if he ever got trained up there. Don't love the turn double play, which is obviously pretty important at shortstop, but not critical with that range, error, and infield arm. He could play right field if needed, but not great at avoiding striking out, not even great at contact at this point. Last 2 years in the major, a 71 OPS plus and a 98 OPS plus, so it looks like you're hoping he's a major league average type hitter at this point, and he's looking for almost $25 million a year, so I don't think he's the answer. And then Brandon Lowe is the other really, at least according to the Stars, highly regarded infielder. Again, someone who's looking for over $20 million. Going to turn 32 next season, kind of a league average hitter last year. We're not going to give him that kind of money. Maybe you go down a notch to a Luis Guillorme. Nice glove. Better bat than Melvin Moreno. He could be interesting as a utility infielder. I mean, he obviously wants the starting lineup, but you look at that glove and the fact that he can play second, short, and he could play third if we needed him to. And although he doesn't have much home run power, he has a pretty good eye, doesn't strike out, average contact hitter. Coming off a bit of a rough season with just a 619 OPS. Certainly not going to be a first priority for us in free agency, but if his number comes down a little bit and we can't do anything else, he would certainly add some depth to our roster. Danby Swanson, similar situation, not as good defensively, decent bat, great personality. Looking for almost $15 million a year, though. Just don't need him. Don't see that there's anyone who's an obvious upgrade over any of our current infielders, particularly with the amount of money these guys are looking for as free agents. So the last thing we'll do is take a look at the outfielders. And again, at least according to our scout, there's 3 who kind of stand out above the rest in terms of their overall skill set. Eloy Jimenez, good contact, good home run power, 124 OPS plus last year with 28 homers, 97 driven in. Really nice bat, only plays left field, 28 years old, looking for $22 million. Probably not the answer. Kyle Tucker, really like the bat. 122 OPS plus each of the last 2 years. 35 doubles each of the last 2 years. Over 90 runs scored each of the last 2 years. OPS is over 800 each of the last 2 years. WAR of about 3. He could definitely help the team. Looking for close to $25 million a year for 8 years. I don't know that we want to go that high on him. And then Jesse Winker, respectable bat, fragile, not much to offer defensively. Coming off a bit of a down year, at least after he went to Cincinnati, had a 115 OPS plus and 112 WRC plus with San Diego. Looks like he was traded to the Reds and was below average with them. So he's looking for pretty big bucks too. So don't know that there's any great options. I mentioned center fielder was, an area we could look to upgrade. Jung-Hoo Lee, solid respectable defensively in center field. I don't think he's quite as good as Kyle Lewis defensively, but it looks like he's got a better bat. He's got some speed, excellent base runner, good at stealing. He's won 2 batting titles in a row in Korea. Oh, he's coming over from Korea. Interesting. He is intriguing. He's a plus contact hitter, good gap power, not that you care about that a ton, doesn't strike out at all, has an excellent base runner, decent speed, good at stealing, acceptable offensively, or acceptable defensively, can certainly play right, could also play center in a pinch. He's won 2 straight batting titles in Korea. Led the league in WAR 2 of the last 3 years. Led the league in OBP 2 of the last 3 years. Led the league in runs once and WRC plus once. That one could be interesting. Looking for an average of $20 million a year for 9 years. He's only 27 years old. I don't know that I want to sign him to a 9-year contract. Interesting nickname, grandson of wind. I don't know what that means, but if anyone knows, would love to hear it. It may just be a random OOTP nickname, or it could mean he's the grandson of some great Korean player from 50 years ago who was known as the Wind. I don't know the answer to that. So it's interesting, there's no slam dunk people that we need to go after in free agency, but we do have enough money that we can try to add somebody. So I guess the question is, do we try to add one of the bats? Do we fire Matheny and try to add one of the pitchers? Looking at our organization, AAA manager is Danny Ayers. Not as good with aging players as Matheny. Expected to have average relationship with the Royals, but at least he's not as hated by the pitchers if we were to bring him up from Omaha. Chris Carter in AAA. Legendary with development, excellent in mechanics. Again, not as good as aging players as Matheny is, but still a pretty solid manager. Again, average relationships at the major league level, but at least he doesn't hate all the pitchers like Matheny does. Justin Toole in high A. Average relationships again. We've got potential replacements in our system if we wanted to get rid of Matheny. Why do you have to be such a dick to the pitchers? I apologize for using that language. Why can't you get along with pitchers, Matheny? Nobody wants to pitch for you. Looking at this, I'm surprised that Rogers signed that extension with us. Looking at some potential free agent managers, John Farrell certainly stands out. Outstanding with development, outstanding with mechanics, outstanding with handling aging. He'd have really bad relationships with the Royals, though. Probably explains why he doesn't have a job. Miguel Centena. Again, not really good relationships. Maybe Matheny's not as bad in terms of his relationships as we thought. John Gibbons, another veteran manager. Excellent development, good mechanics, good handling aging. Average relationships, again, struggles with the pitchers as well as DeCenzo and Williams, Vanasco, Bosma. Looks like he struggles with a lot of the young guys. Probably not optimal. Torey Lovullo. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Same thing for Eric Wedge. Either of those guys may be the answer. Torey Lovullo would have good relationships, still struggles with the pitchers a bit, but not as bad as Mr. Matheny does. He's personable, works well with easygoing, struggles with controlling. So he's going to struggle a little bit with Bo Jackson. Get along well with Travis Lee. Actually, it's a similar personality to Matheny. Matheny also struggles with controlling people. So it wouldn't be horrible. We'd still have a little struggle with our manager in Bo, but Bo's not going anywhere. Bo is the man. So Torey Lovullo is, maybe an option if we want to dump Matheny and try to sign a pitcher. And just take a quick look at Eric Wedge also. Fair relationship. So yeah, Wedge not as good relationship wise. So I mean, we could dump Matheny for Torey Lovullo. I guess the question is, the relationships seem better. I really am not sure what drives the I don't want to play with your manager. Is it because you would have a poor relationship with him? Or does it just have something to do with his personality, who he works well with and who he struggles with? Because if it's just who the relationships are, I like the fact that Lovullo doesn't have any bad relationships, potentially. If it's your personable personality and you struggle with controlling people that influences it, well, then maybe we're not picking up anything, because that's Matheny's personality also. He's personable and he struggles with controlling people. I tend to think it's probably the bad relationships, but that makes me really happy that we were able to get Trevor Rogers signed to that extension, because if he had played out his final arbitration year here and maybe we didn't have the benefit of having him under our control, perhaps he wouldn't have signed with us this year when he became a free agent after next season. But looking at this, Trevor Rogers is our number 1 starter. Caleb Logerwell is our number 2 starter. Tyler Bosma is still a up-and-coming pitcher in the system. Mackenzie Gore, finally an established major leaguer, an important person. And then Austin Roberts, reliever of the year. And our manager can't get along with any of them. Do we think about bringing on Torey Lovullo? Hoping that we get some better relationships. Similar to Matheny, he's excellent with development mechanics and aging. He's going to let me retain control of just about anything I want. I'm not going to manage day to day, but at least I've got the flexibility to make some changes without Lovullo getting all upset. And he doesn't have those poor relationships. I am going to give it some thought. So there's a lot to ponder as we get ready for the rest of the offseason, and we'll answer these questions in our next episode. I guess the big questions that would love to hear people's thoughts on are, do we dump Matheny for Torey Lovullo? And then thinking about the top free agents that are out there. If we dump Matheny for Lovullo, does that potentially allow some of these pitchers who don't want to play for Matheny to go into play? Or do we add an outfielder? There's some interesting options here. Do we add Xander Bogaerts to play DH for us? Do we add Young-Hoo Lee to definitely play somewhere in the outfield for us and probably bat right at the top of the order and hopefully steal a decent amount of bases for us? Or, as I said, do we go for one of the big starters if we get rid of Matheny? Or do we do something else? Would love to hear your thoughts on any of those ideas or other ideas that you have that might be even better. But I feel pretty constructive about what we've been able to accomplish through just the first several weeks of free agency, and think that it's just a matter of figuring out what the one or two big real moves that we do the rest of the offseason are. We've got some money to spend, but we want to spend it wisely because we're always going to be under some budgetary constraints here with the Royals. You can see we've actually got more to pay them this coming offseason than we even do for extensions. But there's some decisions to make, and we will make them all in our next episode. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.